Hello guys, my name is Khan and in today's video I will show you guys that how you can label variables in R and how you can variable values in R and what does it mean by labeling a variable or labeling values in R. So for this video I have created this folder in my computer, F drive, then R videos, then labels, and in this folder I have located a one CSV file that I will be using in my code, and I have already created a code for you guys that I will go with you guys that what I am doing, how can do label values. So I will open my code. So this is my code, but I really like to have my code in a separate window so that it will be easier to go through. And for you guys, I'm just going to zoom in so that you guys able to read it more clearly. So as I said that I am using this folder R videos labels. So I am making that folder for this code as my working directory. So I'm telling the R that my data is located in this drive, and after that I'm uploading my data. So this is my data, CSV data. So I'm saying I'm using this function read.csv that read a CSV file named as csv underscore data.csv, and then I'm reading first the CSV file, and then I'm assigning that data to a data object in R, which is my data. You can name it anything, my data 1 or my data 2. I'm just calling it my data. And another thing that I usually always tell you guys to create a working directory so that you don't need to write the folder path. Suppose if I don't specify my working directory, then I have to specify my folder path here. So even if I do this, I've already specified the working directory, and now I am also giving the path. Even then R will not give any errors. So I will execute in this code Control Shift Home and then Control Enter to execute the code. And if I go back, you can see that R is still working. But the advantage of setting a working directory is that you don't need to write this folder path. So folder path again and again, you just can directly tell R the file name, and R will automatically go to that folder, which is your working directory where data is located. As you can see here, my data is located in this drive, F, R videos and label. And now we'll go back. So after that, I will first try teach you guys that how you can label variables and what does it mean by labeling a variable. Actually, labeling a variable is very useful, especially when you are using those variables in when you are tabulating those variables or you are summarizing those variables. I will show you guys how it can be very useful. So first, in order to label a variable, you need to use this package HMISC. So you first have to install this package by using this command. I have already installed this package, so I'm just commenting it out. Commenting it out means that I'm not the R when I will use this hash. It means that R will not use it as a command. It will use as a comment. And another important thing is to tell you guys that suppose if you want to comment out these 4 lines, so you can simply do is Control Shift and C. So you can do that way. Sorry, I think it's Control C. So but easily you can do comment out these things. But firstly, you have to install this command, and then you have to use this library. By library means that you want R to bring this package first into R, and then you will start using this the functions of this packages. So the function of this package is the label. So first I install this package, then I am calling this library which is HMISCS. So I'm saying R to upload the functions related to this package, and then the label function is actually coming from this package which is HMISC. So in this command, so I'm saying label, there is a variable price in my data. So I can also show you guys. If I go here, this is my data, and you can see that there is a price variable within this data. And if I browse currently here, you can see this is the way my data looks like. These are the variable names coming up. So I'm saying that label the variable price in my data as car price, because here it's just simply written as price. But what does price mean? Is it I'm telling a bit in more detail that price is the car price. So after that, so suppose if I execute my Control Shift Home and then enter. So firstly R is uploading that package, then it have done a labeling over my variable. And now if you come here, you can see that R is saying that a variable is price variable is labeled as car price. And now if I go to my data, the important thing to note here is that now you can also see the description of that variable, which is because I have labeled this price the car price. So one use of labeling the variable is that it can increase its readability, and also it can improve the that user come to when suppose if I'm a new user, I have never seen this data. If my variables are labeled properly, then it will be more easy for me to understand what these variables are capturing. So in the same way, if I go back, so I can also label there is also an MPG variable in my data. I can say label my data $MPG, and I've been saying that label MPG as car mileage. I'm sorry that if I made any spelling errors. My spellings are not very good, but I'm just giving an example. I hope you guys will understand. So if I execute now, and if I go back to my browse window, you can see that MPG variables also get labeled, and other this is not the only useful thing that that labeling is happening. This labeling becomes very important, suppose when you are describing the data. Describing data means that actually describing function tell you the summary of each variable one by one. So if and all the result will be shown on my console in R. So I will say Control Shift Enter, and so as you can see, if I come from here, so from here firstly it told me that there are 13 variables in the data, 34 observations. Then it comes to price, then it told me that this variable is actually car price, and then it's telling me how many missing variables I have, what is the mean, and what is the lowest value, what is the highest value. So things like that. It summarize your data, but for each variable one by one. And you can see also for MPG is telling me that it's car mileage. So it more like it's adding values to your descriptive statistic. But here we haven't added any variable label, so it's just stating rep 78. What does it mean by rep 78? As a new user to this data, it will create confusion. But if you are creating labels so you can explain the variables in detail. So this is one of the use, and I've already shown you the one of the use that if you view data, which means browsing data, so you can also get to know when you're browsing the data that price is actually car price and MPG is car mileage. So I'm going back. So another important thing, I'm just showing you guys here that how labeling a variable can make your life easier. I will not go much into detail about plots because I'm going to plot data for this, but because I will probably discuss the plot function in my later videos. But suppose if, as I have labeled my price variable, and I am calling in that function, I am calling the label of that price within that plot, and I'm not calling, actually I also have labeled MPG, but in this function I'm not calling the label of MPG. So if I do that, if I execute it, so actually I have to rerun the whole command. So as you can see here, they have plotted the graph, and for the price variable I have called the label. So now as you can see that my x-axis is very nicely labeled, but for y-axis I haven't called the label, so my y-axis is very badly labeled. So suppose if I don't call my x label 2, then probably, so suppose if I copy this command and if I don't call this label and just delete it, and now if I plot, as you can see that my the x-axis label is very badly labeled, and my y-axis label column is also very badly labeled. But here when I'm calling the label of that variable, so you can see my x-axis is very nicely labeled. I can also make my y-axis label also the same way by saying it y lab is equal to, don't worry if you don't get this function, because I will get into the plot commands into detail in my later videos. So I'm saying also label y-axis from, get the label from MPG variable label. So now if I plot it, you can see that both x-axis and y-axis label are very nicely labeled. So as you can see, the labeling a variable can improve the readability of your results, readability of your plots. Another thing important to note here is that I'm not so here. So if I just delete this, and because in x-axis, in plots you can also directly tell what to label x-axis. So second, car price, car P. So I'm just, in order to differentiate that this command is working, I'm saying car P. So as you can say that plot have have plotted the x-axis and labeled it as a car P. But the point is that if you, one of the use of using the label variable command, this command, that suppose, because probably when you are doing with a very long code, you will be plotting, you will be describing using these variables again and again, and if you haven't labeled your variable, then you have to, suppose if you're coming using the plot command, you have to come here, you have to tell that okay, label this x-axis as a car price, and because we are using x-axis price as on the x-axis, and you have to keep on repeating this thing. And suppose in after that you realize that you have to change this label, and then suppose if you realize that you haven't labeled it properly, then you have to go through your code, all over your code again, and have to change it again. So suppose if you realize that it's not car price, it's bike price, so then you have to go all over your code file, you have to change everywhere where you have labeled it. But if you have used this label, then you don't need to go and everywhere and have to label it again. You just have to come here and have to change it to bike, so it can make your life very easy. So this is a very short review about label variables. You can play around with it more. After that, I will move to label values. So what does it mean by label values? So firstly, I will just, for my safe side, I will execute this code. I will come here. So I will browse my data. So if I go to my data, there is a variable foreign, and foreign is actually 1 or 2. So if I table, so actually table will just tabulate my data and will tell me how many observation data have for different categories. My data dollar, then I will say foreign. So if I have tabulated my foreign variable, it's saying that there are two values in this foreign variable, 1 and 2, and number of observation with 1 are 52 and number of observation with 2 are 22. So there are 22 observation with label with value 2. But what does it mean by 1 and 2? As a beginner, as a new user to this data, I don't know what this category 1 and 2 means. So for such kind of users, or to increase the readability of the data, you have to label such kind of thing. Actually, 1 is domestic and 2 is representing foreign car makes. So I will go back to my my code file. And as I am saying, commenting here, that it's hard to understand, especially when you are sharing the result with people, those who have never seen this data before. So it's better to label your categorical variable. So what does labeling a categorical means? That it will add an overlay of a label. Actually, behind that label, the values will remain 1 and 2. So I will show you guys how you can do that. So firstly I will start from here on the right side of the equation. So I am using this command factor. After that, after the factor function, I am specifying the which variable I want to label, and then I'm saying that there are two levels in this variable. As you can also see, when I have tabulated this foreign variable, the table command have shown me that there are two levels, 1 and 2. So I'm saying levels are 1 and 2, and after that I'm using a command labels, and then I'm saying is equal to, then I'm creating a vector, string vector, and the first part is domestic because I want to label 1 as domestic. Make sure that you have you write down your labels in a proper sequence, because 1 is coming first. That's why you will write down domestic first, and the second in this vector coming next, and that's what you will write down foreign afterwards. So now if I execute my code, so let's Control Shift Enter, and now if you guys look at here, the foreign variable got labeled, but it's not string variable now, it's still a numeric variable, as I can show you, but it's just labeled as domestic and foreign. If you come here in foreign variable, you can see that it got labeled as domestic and foreign, but behind the scene the values are still 1 and 2. And now if I tabulate my foreign variable, and you can see that now R will show me The the observations are 52. Observations with domestic category are 52, and observations with foreign category are 22. And it's very easy for user to understand what's going on now. So in the same way, I also have a variable in my data which is type, but and if I table this type variable data, and then I'm using type variable. So there are three kind of categories in type variable: 1, 2, and 3, and 18, 38, and 18 observations have related those categories. But what is type variable is telling us, again, as a beginner user, it's not adding any sense to me that what does it 1, 2, and 3 means. So in order to make it more readable, I will again try to label it. But before going to label it, I will show you guys that I have used the same. So I'm assigning a label to a variable, and after that function I am assigning the label to the same variable. So here you can see that my data foreign variable, I'm using here the same variable, but you can also use a different, you can create a new variable too, so which will add the same information. So suppose I want to create label. So I'm saying that I create a new variable, foreign underscore label, but that variable will be coming from my data foreign, and it will be labeled by in such a way. So now if I go, if I go to my data, you can see that my variable got labeled now. Actually, my data foreign label. So this is the way that you can also create new variables in your data. And after that, I will show you guys that how you can. So suppose now I was telling you that there is another variable in my data which is a type variable. So if I want to label the type variable, so I will do it again. Actually, the three categories 1, 2, and 3 in the type variable are actually 1 for petrol car, 2 for diesel car, and 3 for electric car. So I will come here, I will write down my data dollar, then foreign type, and then I will say assign it, and then I will using the command factor, and then I will specify first the variable name again, my data dollar type, and then comma, then I will specify the level. As I have shown you guys, the type variable has 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. Then I will say levels. I will specify the levels in a vector 1, 2, and 3. So again, here important thing is that your levels shouldn't be always 1, 2, or 3. Maybe you come up with the data where the categories are 1, 5, and 6. Then you have to specify 1, 5, and 6. In this data, it's the levels are very sequential, like 1, 2, and 3, but it can be in any order. After that, I will say labels, and I will create a string vector now. I will say because first means petrol, so I will have to specify petrol first. Then I have to specify the 2 is for diesel, that's why my second string will be diesel. And my third 3 means electric, so my third sequence in this third string in this vector will be electric. So now if I execute it, so if I go now here, you can see that with type is now labeled as petrol, diesel, and electric. And if I go to my variable type, it's still a integer variable, but with 3 levels: petrol, diesel, and electric. And behind those labels, actually, I still have these values. And if I table this type variable now, my data underscore $sign type. Now you can see that the table is very easy to read: petrol, diesel, and electric. And now we'll go back, and now will show you guys that suppose whatever you are doing in your, so suppose if I execute my all command, and if suppose I want to compile all these results in a, so all these results which are appearing here, I want to get into a report form, or I want to, because maybe I'm sharing my results with a supervisor who don't have R, so I can share my code, my results in a PDF format or in a Word document. Then you can create a report. So how you can create a report is by simply going here, and you can click it, and it will create a report for you guys. Thank you for watching the video.